Zexion is the latest Metroidvania we've had a chance to play, and this one is perhaps one of the most original takes we've seen yet, with easily an incredibly challenging and well-developed world. And while it may certainly not be the Dark Souls of Castlevania, this may be the Contra of Castlevania. Our story is that a powerful substance and MacGuffin, Zexion, has caused galactic warfare for years due to the power that it can provide any one or any nation that acquires it. And when the last known supply of it has been found on an unknown and distant world, every spacefaring empire and civilization are rushing to try and claim it. You play as one of them, who is trying to use Zexion to save their planet from a unnatural cosmic storm. And to do that, we are going to explore, gather lots of upgrades, and do plenty of running, jumping, and shooting. As you can tell from the footage, Zexion borrows heavily from Metroid. You will be running, shooting, aiming in the cardinal and ordinal directions, and using missiles as your kind of super attack. Now, while this game definitely borrows a lot of the language and general mechanics from Metroid, we have a lot of things that really make it stand out. The world is incredibly non-linear and kind of leans more towards like a Hollow Knight style of level design. The opening is going to be mostly railroaded as you do not have any upgrades and especially no movement tech in order to explore. But once you get your hands on the ever handy-dandy double jump, the sky is the limit and also space in some areas, as you are free to explore trying to find the 4 important keys needed to get to the end. Unfortunately, they're going to be all across this planet filled with all manner of nasty aliens, bugs, robots, and maybe some Lovecraftian elder gods in a few places. The combat here is going to be about, again, running and gunning. As an interesting touch, once you're kind of shooting in one direction, the character will kind of keep the gun aimed in that way. This will kind of allow you to focus on moving and kind of just hit the shoot button to aim in that general direction. And this is a very important point about Zexion. This is one of the more combat-intensive Metroidvanias we've seen in some time. Probably the most combat-intensive in terms of range-based combat. Because normally when we talk about combat in this respect, we refer to, again, games like The Prince of Persia, Guacamelee, Salt Sanctuary, that kind of thing. But here, you're going to find a lot of focus on fighting, and especially a lot of focus on boss fights. And Zexion features some of the most challenging and demanding boss fights we've seen from a Metroidvania in some time, and especially for one that is range-based. Bosses, as well as a lot of the more elite enemies, are all random pattern fights, and they will track and react to you incredibly well. This is a game where bosses can move around, jump, they'll perform multiple patterns, and they will track you like a heat-seeking or plasma-seeking missile, energy blast, Kamehameha, and more. And that kind of plays into some of the issues I have with the game that I'll come back to in a minute. But this one definitely is for the boss fights. There are multi-pattern fights, there's multi-pattern fights and phases. And yes, if you are someone who likes your boss fights to be multiple phase transforming monstrosities, you are going to get your money's worth out of this one. As you explore, you'll acquire, again, multiple upgrades, and the game definitely borrows kind of a who's who of cool and nifty upgrades from some of the greats of the genre. And if you've played any of the major names of Metroidvanias over the years, you'll probably recognize a few of the upgrades that you'll be getting. In terms of difficulty, as I said a minute ago, this is where Zexion gets a little bit funky. It is a very hard game, and some of that difficulty has to do with how the game controls. While your character is very reactive and moves like on a dime as you run in a direction, the issue that I have with it is that it doesn't feel like the character is designed to fight these enemies. And this is not something that you're going to see right away. For, I would say, 75% of the world of Zexion, it felt very fair. It's the final quarter and kind of the final gauntlet of boss fights, where the game starts to feel a little bit more punishing than I feel like it needs to be. For one thing, enemy powers become a lot more screen spanning and a lot faster, and there are some cases where it just feels like there's no way to dodge this. And this is not a game where you have any true defensive move. There's no iframe, no dodge roll, anything like that. Your only option is to just get your character out of the way. But part of the problem is that your character moves slowly. You walk slowly, you jump slowly, and you fall slowly. There's an upgrade to make you fall even slower. But there's a case where during one of the kind of final fights where I jump to avoid the enemy's attack, and by the time that I've landed, the next attack is already on its way, and I just can't get away from it. And it doesn't help that your character, in terms of kind of size relative to the screen, is a little bit on the larger side. Again, it doesn't sound all that bad on paper, but when you have multiple homing projectiles and tracking homing projectiles coming your way, it's very hard to get away from that. And ducking doesn't always work. You'll have to rely on your slide to get yourself even lower. But this also plays into another point about this game. It is surprisingly very button heavy. I would also recommend, if you're interested in playing this game with a gamepad, get used to using the right analog stick for aiming, because there's a lot of movement tech you're going to need to be doing to avoid attacks, and everything, or the majority of your tech, is tied to jump. So you'll get access to multiple kind of options that you can use while you're in the air, but because each one is limited until you land, or in some cases like touch a wall or touch any surface, you can have cases where you're frantically trying to avoid an attack, you'll trigger the wrong ability, and it will lead to you getting hit or getting knocked away. And there's one particular section near the end involving lava that becomes incredibly punishing because of that. And it leads to some very awkward difficulty spikes. The game, for the most part, is very friendly in terms of checkpointing. It will checkpoint before a major boss fight. It will even checkpoint in the middle of bosses if there's like a massive phase change, and that is great. And in some cases, it's pretty much required if you're on any attempt of beating some of these fights. But then there's this one section where it feels like the checkpointing just kind of disappears, and can lead to repeating long stretches of play and long stretches where it is very easy to die. And this goes with another point about the difficulty of Zexion. Unlike a lot of other Metroidvanias, enemies, for the most part, do not drop supplies. Your three main consumables are going to be health, missiles, and bombs. And most enemies will not drop any of them. You'll have to rely on either finding kind of hand-placed drops in the world, or fighting specific larger enemies. However, of course, as you can probably guess, larger enemies means they take more damage and they also deal more. So it doesn't matter they drop one healing point if you just went through 5 bars of your E-tank to try and knock them out. And this is even more frustrating by the fact that enemies will respawn when you kind of move off screen. And if you're still in the same area, you kind of go back and then forth, they'll just come right back to annoy you. And I'm surprised they did it like that, again, considering that many enemies just simply don't drop anything of use. And it can be very frustrating for new players because of that. There are a ton of items to find in this game, and if you want to see it all the way through to the end and get all the, especially the optional challenges done, you are going to need every single E-tank, missile tank, and I guess bomb tank that you're going to find. And once you beat the game, there's even more challenges to uncover, including unlocking a full-on randomizer, making this, I think, the second retail release Metroidvania to include that in its feature. So there is a lot more to this game than meets the eye. And I would say this is going to be for the fans or the expert fans of Metroidvanias. If this is your kind of first example or your first try at Metroidvania design, especially first try at 2D platforming, I would definitely not recommend this game because it throws everything at you and expects you to already be good at these elements right from the get-go. But if you're someone who has, sharpened your teeth and I guess your thumbs on a variety of challenging Metroidvanias and looking for a very original and very great and challenging take on it, you definitely need to play this one, because this may be one of the best Metroidvanias we're going to get in 2025, unless Silksong decides to make a stealth appearance anytime soon. And I am definitely all in if these developers want to release a sequel to this one. And if we do get a sequel, I would love them to add just full mouse aiming, so I can just aim in any direction while I'm strafing, jumping, and trying not to die, and be able to hit the enemies that way. So with that, Zexion was played with a retail key. If you did happen to play this one, especially got through the final quarter, let me know how you fared down below. And let me tickle your game for a future stream and video designed to involve Vanias, Metroids, or shooting. Please get in touch. Thanks for watching, and I will see everyone in our next video. Thanks for watching, and a special thank you to our Patreon supporters. If you enjoyed the video, do the YouTubing stuff. Be sure to visit our Discord and Patreon, and if you're interested in more of my thoughts on design, check out my game design books.